Hello, everyone. Welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Rishi Agrawal, who is the founder of TeamLease Regtech, which is India's leading regulatory technology solutions company, enabling ease of doing business for over 1,500 legal entities across all states and union territories. Hi, Rishi. Welcome to ELI.
Well, thank you, Priyaranjan. Really appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to having a great conversation with you.
I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Sure. So, you know, I graduated from IIT in 1999, moved on, graduated from IIM Calcutta in 2001, worked with Bank of New York Mellon for about 12 years, spent the first 6 in the United States, spent the other 6 running and managing their offshore development presence, which was a pretty sizable presence, going up to a few thousand people between Chennai and Pune. 2013 started TeamLease Regtech. Its erstwhile name was Avantis, as a partnership company with my co-founder Sandeep. And then it was a belief at the time that if India has to get to its logical destiny of becoming an economic superpower, regulatory cholesterol will become a key binding constraint, and this problem needs solving. So with that thought process, we started back in 2013, 2014 timeframe. And with the grace of God and with the blessings of the elders, we've survived the onslaught of entrepreneurship for the last almost 7, 8 years now and have stayed there.
Got you. We will talk about your journey of building the Aventis then Team Leads RegTech. But first, tell us, define the context on how big is this problem that you are solving. Share some numbers and tell us about the problems that your target customer base faces on a day-to-day basis.
Sure, it's a really huge problem. Putting numbers in context, India has 63 million enterprises.
Oh, wow.
Only 1 million are formal enterprises. Only 500,000 actually pay PF and ESI on an ongoing basis. Only 70,000 have a revenue of greater than 5 crores. Only 22,500 have paid up share capital of more than 10 crores. And only about 8,000 are listed companies. So as you can see, the 63 million enterprises in the country actually convert into only, say, 8,000 listed companies. So unfortunately, over the last 75 years since independence, we have created an ecosystem which has incentivized remaining small and converted a lot of enterprises into economic dwarfs. So we think one of the binding constraints to growth is the presence of acute regulatory cholesterol in the country. The ease of doing business, staying on the right side of the law, creating jobs has never been easy. But over the last few years, situation has changed in the country.
Right.
If you look at the 4 factors of production, which is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, in the first 50, 55, 60 years post-independence, we had land and labor. We didn't have capital and entrepreneurship. Last 10, 15 years, the presence of capital is all over the place. There's enough capital chasing good ideas, good companies, which are trying to solve some genuine problems. So capital is no more a problem. The 4th factor is really the entrepreneurship. And that is where regulatory cholesterol, ease of doing business, staying on the right side of the law becomes extremely important so that more and more people can take to entrepreneurship. That's the problem we solve. We have been working on creating technology-led solutions that can help organizations of all sizes stay on the right side of the law.
Okay. Now that we understand the problem, tell us as a venture how you are solving this problem, or what is so unique about it. The way I understand is this is a problem, since this is about compliance. The typical accountants and company secretaries, the firms, they do all sort of compliances, but taking a corporate route to do it scalably, that is what you are doing. So tell us about it.
So basically, any company that is operating in India, whether it's a private limited company, it's an LLP, it's a listed company, it's a multinational company, whether they have hospitals or they run universities, schools and colleges, whether they run automobile companies, textile companies, pharma companies, chemical companies, doesn't matter. If they have operations in the country, if they have an entity, private limited or what have you, they deal with certain number of compliances, right? Just to put numbers in context, a small scale, which I can say an MSME operating in, say, an automobile sector or a pharma sector in a single state with one manufacturing plant employing, say, 100 to 120 people, today deals with roughly 1,000 unique compliances in a year. That translates into about 4 compliances on a per business day basis. Such a company does not have resources to hire an army of consultants to make do with its compliance requirements. Yeah. As this company scales from a single state operation to a multi-state operation and increases its manufacturing footprint, it has sales offices, warehouses, it has other kind of support centers, as the case might be, the number of compliances can easily scale into several thousand. And an ultra large organization typically deals with tens of thousands of compliances. Right. Now, the traditional method of dealing with this is ad hoc, paper-based, people-dependent compliance, where a bunch of people in the corporate headquarters, typically company secretaries or CFOs, they kind of knew what is the requirement and they would work on making sure they comply. But imagine a multi-entity, multi-locational, multi-business environment spread across the length and breadth of country. Chances are the best and the sharpest minds in the country will start missing compliances, and being on the wrong side of the law means fines, penalties, loss of reputation. And in today's day and age, corporate governance comes at a premium. Yeah. Investors put a premium on well-governed companies. Cost of raising debt capital is much lower for well-governed companies. International business comes to companies which show good corporate governance and so on and so forth. So there is a premium associated with being well-governed. Mm-hmm. Inadvertently, if you end up being on the wrong side of the law, you will leak revenue, you will pay fines and penalties, you will deal with notices, you will deal with all kinds of show cause and so on and so forth. And it becomes extremely unpleasant to run that kind of a business. We have attempted to technologically transform and provide solutions that don't make you use hope as a strategy to being compliant, that brings sustainability, it brings scale, it brings transparency and accountability, it brings control in your compliance program. That's what we do. Got it. Speaking of technology, would love to understand what is the platform play here? How do you platformize such a varied and variety of compliances that are there? Sure. So I'll take a step back, right? When we originally thought in 2013, 2014 that we wanted to solve the compliance problem of India, and we started doing whiteboarding sessions between the two founders and a bunch of people, we quickly realized that it's non-trivial, right? If I have to solve the compliance problem, the first thing is, what are these compliances? What are their types? Where are they from? Who are the jurisdictions and authorities? What are the nuances? And very quickly, we realized that none of this data existed which could be consumed directly. So the first order of the day was to start creating a repository of various kinds of licenses, registrations, permissions, consent orders, various kinds of returns, registers, challans, payments, remittances, various kinds of time-based, event-based, checklisted compliances, understanding the law of the land from a union, state, union territories, local body level. And then there are various things like MIDCs, Industrial Development Corporations, STPIs, SEZs. Each one of them have their own specific statutory compliance requirements. And none of this data existed for us to use this and start building on top of it. So the first step was to get our arms around the complexity, the nuances of the regulatory ecosystem of India, and start putting a repository which was searchable, sortable, filterable, digital in nature. And that's where the solutioning began. So the first few months was actually to try and just get our arms around the problem.
Mm.
After that, we started building on technology, which is where a SaaS platform seemed like a logical choice. I'm talking 7 years ago. We wanted to avoid building something that required a deployment. The writing was on the horizon that the world is going to adopt cloud. More and more applications, enterprise systems will move towards cloud, and it became a natural, logical choice for us to create a cloud-based technology stack. And that's how we started working towards a multi-tenant SaaS architecture, so that without having any need to own a piece of technology which was local to one's ecosystem or data center or environment, people could quickly go live. Because once you have a piece of technology sitting in a customer's organization, managing its life cycle becomes a non-trivial thing. It's inefficient, it's expensive. Version management, control, monitoring, resilience, disaster recovery, business continuity, self-healing, security management, all of those challenges kick in quickly. So that's where we decided whatever we do has got to be cloud enabled, it's got to be multi-tenant, it has got to be mobile first, and so on. And that became kind of basic premise behind our solution.
Got you. Tell us a bit about the early days of entrepreneurship. Like, what motivated you to, first of all, choose entrepreneurship? Because I understand you were doing well in corporate. Why entrepreneurship? What triggered that?
Well, I don't know if I can tell you one specific day when I woke up and decided to become an entrepreneur. This was simmering deep inside. This was an itch that I had to scratch at one point in time. Growing up, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My father quit his job in early 80s when India was still in the license regime prior to 1991 liberalization. He decided to quit manufacturing job and started his own company. I saw him work almost 16 to 20 hours a day to make ends meet, to win the business, to deliver that business. All my uncles, they've run their own businesses. So entrepreneurship, if you will, ran in the family. And all through, there was a deep desire to become an entrepreneur, and instead of being a job taker, become a job creator and contribute my bit to the economy, right? And that opportunity never presented itself while I was in a job, because one of the fallouts of doing well in a professional job is that you keep moving upwards so quickly that the cost of doing anything different is much higher. So the cost of quitting and starting something is not low. And that's where one fine morning, bunch of opportunities presented. I spoke to my wife, and I'm really thankful that she's always believed in me pursuing entrepreneurship, and things happened. My co-founder and I aligned, and we saw a problem. We thought we could do solutioning. He came from a chartered accountancy background. He had seen compliance from a different perspective. I saw technology from a different perspective. And I think there was a convergence where he brought the definition of the problem and understanding of the domain, and I brought the understanding of building enterprise technology. And that's where a solution happened.
Gotcha.
Early days, not very easy. Most of the capital that was initially used up, because it's a SaaS product, it's a multi-tenant architecture. You don't make money until you get a critical mass of customers, but you have to create the solution before you can start selling. So upfront investment was required in building the product. And all of that came from the collective savings of myself and my co-founder Sandeep. So there were many times, at least 5 times I can recall, where in the early days in 2015 and 2016, we were very close to calling all our associates, which was a small team of 10 people or less, in a room and telling them that we will not be able to make the payroll at the end of the month, and humbly requesting them to look for other opportunities outside the company, and also trying to find a job ourselves so that we could, foot the bill within the family. But, magically from somewhere, hidden hand of God will show up. Some help will happen in a lot of cases from sources that you would not typically expect that help will come from. And we would get new oxygen and we would keep moving until we would hit another roadblock and we would feel like we've come to the end of all our resources. And times come for us to get our people in a room and let them know that we may not be able to make the payroll for the month. So, I'm very grateful that many of those occasions happened during the initial entrepreneurial journey. We thought we have run out of steam. We thought the only alternative that we have is to, stop this venture and go back to a job because there was no money in the bank. Emotionally, it was draining. But I think we have survived, and I can tell you we are out of the woods.
Gotcha. Would love to know, how did you go about acquiring customers? I understand you started with building a platform, and once platform was ready, you would have approached some customers. But compliances typically has been a business where you hire firms who do compliances for other companies. The technology play or platform play is a bit new. So, what were the challenges? How did you pitch to your customers? And what category of companies or accounts did you approach initially for acquiring them?
Well, Priyaranjan, that's a great question. For answering this question, I will need to bifurcate customers into three broad categories. Category one, informal players who run small companies. In majority of the cases, their compliance burden is next to nothing. They don't pay GST, they don't pay minimum wages, they don't maintain any register, and so on and so forth. They don't need a compliance solution. They fly under the radar for most part. The second category of customers are small firms who have crossed the threshold of, say, 20 employees. They are under the requirements of PF, ESI, income tax, GST. They are the kind of companies who typically lean on third-party service providers like labor consultants for labor laws, chartered accountants for direct taxes and indirect taxes, including GST, company secretary for company law, EHS consultants in case environment, health, and safety is applicable, and so on and so forth. They are small players. They spend certain amount of money per month and deal with service providers to stay on the right side of the law. The third category is about 25 to 30,000 companies in India, which have the size, which have the scale, which have the complexity, which have the multi-locational presence, which have manufacturing organizations, which employ certain number of people above a threshold, to whom hundreds of compliances are applicable on an annual basis.
Right.
This is the class of customers where staying compliant is non-trivial. They are large enough. They have people like a CFO, like a company secretary, like a head HR, but they don't necessarily have the depth of expertise to manage their compliance. They want to stay compliant because the cost of non-compliance is high, but they may not have all the resources to stay compliant.
Right.
They need to certify to their board in line with the law of the land requirements that they are compliant, but they may not have the resources, expertise to do that. And that's where our sweet spot comes in. These are the companies who are growing 15, 20, 25% a year. They are increasing the branch footprint. So if you take NBFCs or banks or insurance companies, the only way they grow is to increase their branch footprint. The moment you go from a single state or single city to multiple cities or multiple states, the number of compliances simply go through the roof.
Yeah.
If you are a manufacturer like a chemical company, pharmaceutical company, or auto company, again, the number of compliances are huge, and managing them is not easy. And that's where they have the problem. We understand the solution. Early on, we got a couple of customers through the friends and family route who believed in us, who thought we were onto something good. And just to oblige us, help us, support us, they became our early customer. Money was small initially because in India, people are used to consuming software for free. Thanks to the initial culture back in the day, everything from operating system to word processor and Excel came literally free. And those of them who did not want to use a jailbroken copy would typically use open source. So the culture of investing in software, enabling technologically the organization was relatively low. If you look at the investments that a competitive company was making in technology 20 years ago in a developed world, those are the kind of investments that Indian companies are making in software today. So selling software, that too in a SaaS model where it's a subscription-based license fee, was not easy. And that's where on multiple occasions, we felt like we'll not be able to make the payroll. So that was early on, a challenge early on, but I think things are changing in the last 5 to 6 years. I've seen significant change in attitudes. Indian companies are opening up to investing in software and technology. They're investing in enabling their organization for greater efficiencies, greater transparency. Most of these companies are now on HRMS and payroll systems. They now use CRM systems for their sales management. They used ERP systems for their rest of the operations management. They use compliance solution for staying on the right side of the law. So I think the attitude and investments towards technology in India has changed considerably in the enterprise world in the last 5 to 6 years, and we are one of the beneficiaries of that change.
Got it. One thing I'm also curious to know about, and you may choose to answer or not answer this. Tell us a little bit about the acquisition by the TeamLease Group, which is one of the leading recruitment partners in India. So how did that happen? And tell us a little bit about the processes involved from starting, when you start thinking about it, to the final thing when it ends. What does a founder goes through, so that other entrepreneurs who are also thinking about mergers and acquisition, they'll get a perspective about it.
Sure. First of all, it's not an acquisition, so I would like to make that small correction. TeamLease came in as a strategic investor, and they own more than half the company now. We still continue to run the company as entrepreneurs, and very grateful to them that they let us run the company like entrepreneurs, like tech entrepreneurs. The background is TeamLease is a 20-year-old company, one of the leading companies in the space of employment, employability, and ease of doing business in the country. They've been trying to put India to work over the last 20 years. The founders, both Ashok Reddy and Manish Sabharwal, have believed in the concept of formalization and the fact that if India has to get to its logical destiny, formalization of the labor force is going to play an important and a vital role. While they were trying to put India to work, along the way, they recognized that regulatory cholesterol is a binding constraint for India to grow. They were trying to create solutions. In the meantime, we ended up becoming a service provider to them for this solution. Very quickly, there was a meeting of hearts and minds. Both of the companies realized that we were marching along the same lines. They were trying to put India to work. We were trying to help India comply. And they decided that they could make an investment. We were looking for an investment because every now and then we ended up gasping for breath in absence of capital. While we were ambitious entrepreneurs, building a SaaS business in an enterprise space is definitely not easy. They came in as strategic investors, and we started marching together. Along the way, COVID happened. We continued to need investments to build the team, build the product, technology, systems, build our sales and marketing muscle, and enrich products, because regulatory technology is a huge space, and we think we are just scratching the surface towards our cashless, presenceless, and paperless compliance, which is the destiny of 21st century India. So we have continued to work. They mentor us. They've grown in this economy over the last 20 years. They know how to build a sizable, scalable, sales organization, penetrate into the country, sell, and we have learned a lot of useful lessons working with them. The journey was fairly straightforward and simple. And for all the budding entrepreneurs, my suggestion is try and find an investor who believes in what you are trying to do, right? There are enough financial investors out there, and we've been approached by a number of financial investors along the way. But every now and then when we engage with them, we realize that their interest in this venture is short-lived. They don't necessarily believe in what we are trying to do or the solution that we are trying to create. Their interest in us is merely financial. They are looking for a 10x, 20x growth in a short span of time, and they don't really care how we do it as long as we deliver it. And personally, I think if I wanted to build business one more time, I would not do anything else but work with people who are like-minded, who are playing a long-term game, who are not trying to take shortcuts in trying to build a business worth value, which is not just creating wealth for its own shareholders, but it's also creating wealth for the country. It's good for the country. It's solving a problem that the country needs solving. And I think all the young entrepreneurs who are looking to get into alliance should find allies who believe in what they are trying to do. And trust me, today India is at a size and scale where if you look harder, you will find enough and more people with money in their pocket who will be ready to back you. Don't fall for the short term, because if you're building anything worth value, it takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of hard work spent over years to build anything worth value. All these shortcuts can give you high valuations in near term, but in long term, you need to create sustainable business, customers who really like what you're doing. You need to build scale in operations beyond just selling one time and walking out.
Got it. My final question for you. Tell us, what is the meaning of entrepreneurship for you? How do you define this term entrepreneur? Or maybe you can tell us about what are the skill sets that define entrepreneurship, or what are some of the personal traits, or what are the features of an entrepreneur, if you will?
Few things, right? I mean, an entrepreneur is someone who is fearless, who's willing to take risks, right? And you may have heard this definition before, but let me explain. All of us feel comforted that on the 30th or 31st of the month, a paycheck will hit our account, right? As an entrepreneur, the story changes. We hate the thought of end of the month because you'll have to pay salaries at the end of the month.
Right.
And for someone who's not born into an ultra rich family, who comes with a lot of legacy wealth, to be able to leave a cushy job and believe in solutioning a problem that maybe in the future is not easy. It requires a lot of guts, a fire in the belly. It requires a belief. It requires being able to see what is invisible to a normal eye. And it's a story of hope. So to me, an entrepreneur is someone who is gutsy, who can take risks, who's not looking for a cushy job, who can work in an uncertain environment where the job description is not very clear, and is willing to risk personal time, personal savings for something that may not happen. And as they say, 98 out of 100 ventures fail eventually. True. Right? So that's where the guts come in to the entrepreneurship.
Got it. Good.
Personal traits, you asked me personal traits that I attribute this to. Fire in the belly, right? I've always believed in solving problems which require guts, which require deep thinking, which require innovation, which require looking beyond the obvious. Those have been some things that I think I have developed and I love over a period of time. And patience, right? One of the biggest lessons in entrepreneurship is being patient. Results won't happen quickly, right? If you're looking for instant gratification, entrepreneurship should be the last thing one should do, because play the long game. 10, 20 years is when you start seeing that curve really move upwards. The first few years are just lots of guts and lots of grit, lots of failures. You will create products that nobody wants to use. You will go and sell in the marketplace, and 9 out of 10 people won't give you a meeting. The 10th person would ask you to give the software for free.
Right.
It's not easy. So I think that's what I attribute a lot of what we have done to, which is patience and the belief that we are on to something important. We are solving a good problem, and this problem needs solutioning. And if we do a good job of solving this problem, and everybody benefits, customers benefit, governments benefit, and the ecosystem prospers.
Got it. Well, on this note, we have come to the end of the session. Thanks for your time, Rishi, and it was a pleasure to have you on our platform.
Well, Priyaranjan, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to more meaningful dialogues in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Rishi. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.